Well, good Tuesday or Wednesday, I should say, night, everybody. Welcome to Bowling with the Fef. We are a platform for you to share your unique bowling story, all live on our YouTube channel, and we are having a bunch of fun doing it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Pfeffer. You can find me on Facebook, on the Bowling with the Fef Facebook page, or email me at bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com. We're always looking for guests. And if you have a unique bowling story to tell, and again, skill level is really kind of out the window here. We are always interested in finding out about new bowling stories. So please get a hold of me if you're interested or just would like some more information on the show. I'd be happy to talk it over with you, or perhaps have you on the show. I do want to give a little shout out today. We had Will Welch on our episode 39, which happened to happen right after my birthday, and he hit me with the "It is your birthday" from The Office. So today happens to be Will's birthday. So Will, it is your birthday, and I hope it is a happy one. Hopefully, the folks down in Milwaukee are treating you right and are making sure that you enjoy your special day today. How old is he? We don't know. I don't know that much, and not like I'd really reveal that if he didn't want me to. But regardless, hopefully he has a great day. Now, Will, of course, in the Milwaukee area and is originally from Florida. And Florida is where we go tonight for our show, as our guest is from Lake Wales, Florida. He is Del Warren, VP of the Kegel Company, head coach of the Weber International men's team, and two-time PBA Tour national champion. Del, it is a pleasure to have you on tonight. How you doing?
Beth, thanks. This is a real pleasure. You have kind of a different show. It's really upbeat, and it's a different way to kind of interview people. So I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, thank you. I really hope it resonates. You know, we try to cater to those who are really into the sport, like you and I, or maybe people who are just kind of socially into it and want to learn more about it and the characters that come along with that. So I'm really glad that you enjoy the format, and we got to get into this. You guys are back from the Midwest Collegiate Championship at Bowlero Wauwatosa, which is a tournament that I know well because I competed in it a few times. Tell me about what happened during that event. You guys finished runner-up.
Yeah, so always, college is bowling is so unique because our season goes the entire years ago. This is our 14th year starting. We started Weber with really not a clue what the hell we were doing, to be honest with you, in terms of college and what that entailed and all that stuff. And so 14 years later, we realized that the season is super long, and we really we lost one of our first kids that ever came to the program. His name was Andro Seminette. So we've dedicated this year to him. He recently passed away a couple of years ago of cancer, 35 years old. And when we started our program 14 years ago, we bowl Milwaukee every year. That's our kickoff year, first weekend of October. And in that year, we finished fifth. Our first inaugural tournament we ever did. We had 14 kids in the program. And so we've dedicated this, and ironically, we qualified fifth, and we went on and we got in, top 8 match play, and we went on to we won our first 2 matches, beating Marion and St. Ambrose. I believe St. Ambrose was the leading qualifier, and then ironically, both the men and the women bowled SCAD University for the title. And what's very appropriate about this, so the performance and all, to kick off your season against an elite field like that and finish second and bowl as well as we did with a young team, I'm just ecstatic. I don't really have much expectations first semester of the year because the season's so long. My job is to develop the team to get ready for sectionals and nationals, which takes 7 months. but we bowled SCAD, and the head coach for that program is Katie Thornton, who was one of the first people to sign up the second year the first year of the women's program. And she went on to be one of our most successful players in our history, and then an assistant coach, and then got her master's degree at Weber, and then now has been the head coach at SCAD there for several years, and has really developed. Every year they've gotten better and better. As a matter of fact, they've won an NAIA national championship, both the men and the women. So super proud of her, and she was very close to Andro as well. So much fun bowling them. They're so talented, and watching Katie do her thing, and the parents a couple years ago were saying, maybe one day that the Padawans would beat the Masters. So we had a nice laugh about that. So very special tournament. Really couldn't have asked for much better. I learned a lot about the team, which is what I told them my objective was to learn a lot about what we needed to do to get better. And this year, like every year, Fef, the team is different every year. Not only are the returners better and more experienced and so on, but also along with the freshmen and the new people coming in, it never gets old because every year it's different. If we get an opportunity to win before we went out, and of course we're going to try to win, but the real objective is really see who we are and what we need to work on, and to have a lot of fun, especially early on in the first part of the year when we've got such a long season. We don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket and burn out, because I've made that mistake a few times along the way as well.
Sure.
So that's kind of how it all went down. It was a pretty special weekend, and everybody fortunately made it back safe.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned Andro, because, that was kind of the next question I was going to ask you, because of all of the, the references to Andro in your social media posts and others involved with the program and their social media posts. What should we know about Andro, who he was as a person?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. You and I haven't talked before, so I really appreciate you doing your research. Andro was one of the first kids that ever signed up. We had 14 kids the first year. One of the best, if not the best player to ever come out of Puerto Rico. He was already on the Puerto Rican national team, bowled on their youth squad. Very competitive player, loved to win. And, he won the Central American Games gold medal, of which that is one of the biggest medals you can win for any type of event, any sport. And so they actually had a parade in downtown San Juan for him when he won. Wow. And of course, Jerry Edwards, who's a great friend of mine, was the head coach of that team. And so, he was a really and had the same kind of sarcastic sense of humor I have. We were always teasing each other. He's a big guy, big personality, always clowning around, lots of energy, brought a lot of energy to the team. He and I and Ruben and Randy played a lot of golf together. And he was also at one time, he was an employee of Kegel. So, after his college career was over, he got a job at Kegel. He was very, very good. He built machines. He also knew how to put down patterns. Very knowledgeable guy. And I really, in the back of my mind, he and I had talked about it long term. We were considering him to, maybe be another coach long term at Kegel. Very knowledgeable man. And just loved his teammates from Puerto Rico. And, I feel for his best friend, Paquito, who literally since the time they were in the third grade, never went a day without talking. And he bowls for the national team as well. So, and if you saw the post, I hope somewhere he realizes how many people he touched all over the world, because he has bowled all over the world for Team Puerto Rico, and all the people that he competed against in college. The outpour of people's comments were, I don't think he knew when he was alive, how many people cared about him and how many people he touched.
Yeah. Like you said, not really knowing a whole lot, being close to the situation, but seeing all the posts and that hashtag, you can really tell, like you said, that he was loved among the folks who knew him, yourself, the greater bowling community, and certainly my heart goes out to his family and friends and everybody that was close to him. So tell me about your bowling story, and we got to start out with the beginning. I've heard that you didn't even start bowling until you were 15. So tell me kind of how and when and why you got into it initially. Oh, looks like you might have frozen up there for a second. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Now I can hear you.
So it's quite interesting how people go through their life and how they land. But I played all kinds of sports growing up in Lantana and Lake Worth, Florida, small towns on the East Coast, and especially Lantana, and where everybody knows everybody. And I did a lot of fishing, mostly played sports and every sport. And then one day, a local friend of mine, invited me to a bowling birthday party. And I shot 128 in my first game on lanes 15 and 16 at Lantana Lanes, a little 16-lane bowling center owned by Harold Beckmeyer. And I was kind of off and running. I fell in love with the game and started watching Pro Bowlers Tour on Saturday, joined leagues. And, my parents were World War II and very old school, and said, hey, listen, we own a small business. We don't have time to cart you around all the stuff you want to do, but as long as you keep at least a B average in school, you have to figure out how to do it, but we'll allow you to do it as long as you don't get in any trouble. And so I did, and that was my journey. And I mean, I stopped doing everything. I stopped playing all my sports. I was a musician. I quit doing that, and I knew right away what I wanted to do, and joined every league I could. And fortunately, back then, in the late '70s, there was about 11 million league bowlers, ABC, WIBC, AJBC, and so there were bowling centers everywhere. Junior leagues were full. Just in Dade, Prowler, and Palm Beach County, there were 60 bowling centers. Great bowlers everywhere. And so I started to watch a guy named John Reinhold, who was the best bowler at Lantana Lanes. He averaged 198, bowled 5 leagues, worked for the city of Lantana, ate every meal at the Lantana restaurant where they made all their food fresh. And so, I wanted to be a pro bowler. And fortunately, I had a bowling proprietor and a youth program that supported that. And when I got to be my senior year in high school, I finished 3rd at nationals. It wasn't called junior gold back then. You had to win your city, then your state. Then I bowled a regional competition in Stone Mountain, Georgia, where I beat Wes Pye, one of the high executives at Storm, for that regional title. And then I went on to bowl Mike Albee on television at the national level. And there were only 8 people that went to nationals. And so, from there, I met Billy Hardwick, who was representing Brunswick, who ironically was opening a pro shop in Fort Lauderdale. And he offered me a pro shop and helped me get my card and my first sponsor. And I signed a deal with Munsingware when I was 19 and started bowling regionals and had success right out of the gate. And, started bowling a few tour stops part-time and bowled. I bowled the summer of 80 and the winter of 81, and summer of 80, ironically, which is where the first time I met my now 37 years, my wife, Dawn, out in Fremont, California. And so, I didn't get a chance to bowl full-time on tour till 85. I was working in pro shops here in town, and while I was bowling, and of course, there were so many tournaments to bowl. And then 84, I bowled regionals my only year that I bowled regionals full time, and I was player of the year in the Southern region. And then from there, I got an opportunity to go full time. And I say my little window now, where I won a couple of titles, made several shows, was really a very small window in career. And about the time I got to be at the level that you dream of when you're in junior bowling, watching Saturday Night and Chris Schenkel and Bo Burton. And I was so fortunate, I went on tour with all my friends from junior bowling.
Yeah.
Me, Ron Dixon, Chuck Gardner, Joe Firpo, Jimmy Keith. We all went on tour together. Like it was summer vacation or something, and I tell the kids today, like, we didn't call it training. We just went bowling, and we learned on our own. And, we created our own tricks. And then not only that, but everybody bowled for money.
Yep.
$5, $10 pot games were everywhere. And then about the time I got really good, my back and my neck started to bother me, and it just got worse and worse. And I kind of hung on probably a year and a half too long, because, I'm living my dream, and here I am, finally have enough skill to where I feel like I can make a living. And so by the time I'm 29, my career's over, really.
Oh.
And then along the way, I met a guy named Mo Pinnell at a regional, and he changed my life in so many ways. I can't tell you. Met him at a regional in Virginia, and he looked like a street person, and I like, who the hell is this guy? And he had actually cut the lanes in this regional in Virginia. He owned a company called Resurface by Us, and then the local association also hired him to do the lanes for the regional. And he told the local ABC guy that you need to stay here all weekend because we're going to break every association record, which they did. Back then, of course, ABC checked the lanes, and so this guy had to stay there and check lanes. And he was the first guy to ever put a huge weight hole on my bowling ball. And I bowled 4 games. It was a big field, 220 entries or something. And I bowled 4 games on C Squad. And that's where I met Mo, at the snack bar. I was being a touring player prima donna. And, I think I shot 40 or 50 over. And I'm like, this is a blocked lane. These are walled up. This isn't bowling. Who did these lanes? And he overheard me. He says, I did these lanes,
Uh-oh.
And I go, well, this isn't bowling. This isn't shot making. He goes, you got a ball with leverage weight? Because leverage weight had just come out. And I said, yeah, I got a whole van full of them. I hate them. He said, go get one. I said, what? He says, you heard me. Go get one. Okay. So I went and got one, and we went back, and there was this Rydell jig on a stand sitting behind the pin setter that it wasn't cemented to the floor. So I'm literally holding on to this jig as Mo's putting a hole in the ball because the jig is waving around in the air. And he puts this ashtray on the side of my ball. And there was no spec back then for minimum weight holes. And he says, now, roll the ball to the right. And if you do it, the ball will react as if no matter what board you hit, that's the board you hit. Well, I averaged 268 for the next 4. Strike out in the 10th frame to make the top 24. I qualified 23rd. The next day, I went 15-1 in match play, qualified first, and I 5-7 in the 10th frame to lose the title by 2.
Oh.
That's how I met Mo, and I lost 250, 258, 256. We become friends. So he's there at the end of my career, and then I lost track from him. And I got into network marketing. My wife and I got into network marketing for 3 years, and got to spend some time with Tony Robbins, and that also changed my life. It was a great 3 years. It really taught me a lot about business and money, and it really, without that education and that, I don't think I would have had as quite of an opportunity to have a business a business experience like I have in the industry. And so watching Pro Bowlers Tour one day, and I watched the first reactive balls go down the lane. I'm watching Pete McCordick, I think, bowl Marshall Holman. Marshall's throwing a urethane ball, and Pete's throwing an Excalibur. And as we know, Pete was a lot straighter than Marshall, and Pete's ball is boomeranging on the back, and Marshall's leaving flat tens with a blue angle. And I call Mo, and I said, "What's going on?" He says, "It's track flare, it's preferred spin axis, it's reactive. The straight player's coming back. You need to come up to North Carolina, train with me, and we need to figure out how to get you to bowl without hurting your back." So I trained with Mo for a month. Hadn't touched the ball in a year. And we're trying to work around it. I'm actually I'm bowling with a back brace on. And lo and behold, my best friend in the world, Chuck Gardner, leases this bowling center in Virginia and says, "Hey, why don't you come up? You need a job and be my general manager, work in the pro shop." So Dawn and I moved to this little town called Franklin, Virginia. And we stayed there for 13 months. And in the meantime, there was a regional there, which I won. And Mo, ironically, was working for AMF designing balls. He designed the Sumo and designed the Ninja. And he lived in Hampton, Virginia. AMF was in Richmond, and Franklin was halfway between. So he was testing balls, and I was a sponge, and I was learning. And from there, I get a call one day about a year later, and Dawn and I get married. And Mo, Steve Wunderlich, the Masters champion, who was a good friend of mine from tour, was the assistant product manager at AMF, offered me a job to be a tour rep. And I said, "What the heck's a tour rep?" And he said, "We don't know, but we're the last company that doesn't have one. And we're going to hire you for 16 weeks. And we cannot guarantee you a job after that. But can you be in New Jersey in 2 weeks?" That was my interview. And thanks to Mo, got me that opportunity. And I learned how to be a tour rep. And kind of the rest is history. I worked there for 10 years and kind of a self-taught guy. I had a lot of great mentors along the way, people that saw something in me, that spent time with me and taught me the skills I needed at the time. And, I'm a pretty blessed man, Fef. God has put me in front of people at the time where I needed to learn something, and that God would provide me with that person to teach me that skill that I needed to move my career forward. And I was very lucky to have a lot of patient mentors along the way. Mo Pinnell, Jim Robinson at AMF. Steve Wunderlich took a chance on me, hiring me at AMF. And so, I was there for 10 years and learned how to design balls. And Mo went on to, start his own company. And I had several balls of the year while I was at AMF, and learned a lot about business and budgets and marketing and how to write copy and all kinds of stuff. And then along comes Columbia 300 was building our product at the time. And Tony Frankowiak, who was another great mentor, was the vice president of manufacturing, and he was our account manager. I was very lucky, again, to have him because he wasn't a typical sales guy. He was the manufacturing guy, and we were the same age and loved golf, and we spent a lot of time together. And there was a position opening at Columbia 300, and it was the president of track. And Mike Albritton, who was our boss, called me up and said, "We want to hire you as president of track." So then after I caught my breath, I went, "Oh my." I'm just as Mo would say, a kid on the street corner. I have a high school education. And I went, I'm not really sure what he saw in me, but about a year later, after he gave me my first review, he just said, "Del, I saw something in me when someone took a chance on me when I was 28 to be president of Skeeter Boats. And there was nothing in my resume that said I was ready to be president of Skeeter Boats. And I saw that in you, and I took a chance on you. And I was there for 5 years, worked for the Herman family, wonderful family. And lo and behold, I get a call from Chris Chartrand about 3.5 years into this. And Chris is from my hometown. I knew Chris when he was a kid. My wife knew Chris when he was a kid. And I knew Dennis Shears before that. And then I knew Dennis Shears when he was this 14-year-old kid pin chasing at Riviera Lanes. And both of them were super smart. And I was sending them bowling balls. So every time track came out with a ball, I'd send the guys at Kegel a case of balls. And, hey, you guys bowl. Let me know what you think. So Chris came up with this harebrained idea, come up with a seminar called When the Ball Meets the Lane. He goes, hey, we feel like the two most important people to customer service in bowling is the mechanic and the pro shop operator. Let's get your company and my company together, do seminars all over the world, and invite mechanics and pro shops to the same seminar. I go, well, that's a great idea. And so we did that, and we got to know each other. We did all over the world. Don Agent, Gus Falgene, and I knew those guys. I'm a Florida guy. And one day Chris says to me, he says, hey, are you interested in running the training center? We think you'd be a great fit. And I knew, because I reported to the board, that the Herman family was thinking about selling. And it was the right time. And I got hired by John Davis. So think about this. I worked for John Davis, Mo Pinnell, Mike Albritton, Jim Robinson. I mean, you talk about an iconic group of bosses to have and mentors. Like I said, I've been super blessed, and I've been here 16 years.
Wow.
At the training center. And, I get to live with John for 90 days, ask him all kinds of questions about his expectation of the training center and the history. And one day he says, Del, you ask too many damn questions. Sometimes there are no answers to the questions. And he says, you know what? And he threw me the keys and he said, you go figure out the training center. That's why I hired you, and I trust you. And that's all he had to say. Oh. And so I've been here 16 years, and I've learned so much about the game, being around people like Randy Stoughton and, Stephen Padilla, the head coach, the head guy of Team USA, used to work for me. So, Rick Wilsey's here, and, Brent Sims has been here a million years, working around, and now Ruben Garagosian, working around a team of these very smart, motivated people in a culture at Kegel of bowlers and people that just love bowling and want to move the sport forward. That's why Kegel became into existence. It's because John felt there was a need for it. And the training center is a research facility for bowling. I just, I can't believe I get to do that every day, Fef. And that's kind of how I landed here, man. And my wife used to work for Kegel. She's a bowler. She's a big part of the Weber team, as big a part as anybody that's helped the team be successful. And, I've got to coach in 38 countries all over the world. And I was the head coach for the Dominican Republic for 4 years. I got to coach in the Pan Am Games and win gold medals in the Central American Games. And I'm I'm not a head coach, but a coach for Team USA 4 times. And I mean, 1992, Dawn and I moved to Franklin, Virginia with $600 in our pocket and a car payment, So, if you'd have said, hey, this is where you're going to be in 30 years, I would like, there's no way, you're out of your mind. But I have so many people that have helped me along the way. So many great mentors. I'm a self-educated guy. And, now with the internet, as I tell the kids, if we had YouTube and the internet when I went to school, I don't think I'd ever get a B in my life. I mean, it's so easy to look up and study things now. And I'm kind of a geeky guy, Fef. I research all kinds of crazy stuff, man. I'm into the cosmos and stuff that I have so much access to. I think it's so much fun to learn. And that's what Mo taught me. Mo taught me how much fun it is to learn, that it's not a chore. And of course, Dr. Dean Hinnants is one of my greatest friends and mentors as well. And we have some really weird and fun conversations, not just about bowling, but life and how people are kind of wired. And, so that's kind of the kind of the highlights of my kind of my life. And we live here in Lake Wales in a beautiful place, about 10 miles. I'm about 12 minutes from Kegel, and tomorrow I'm testing a prototype product. We've got some customers coming in, and we're developing I run a coaching product line with Specto and Aero and Torch, and we're looking at another prototype product that could really revolutionize the game. We've got some people coming in testing tomorrow. I mean, what a cool job. I mean,
Yeah.
And anytime you're doing testing or teaching, you never know what's going to happen from one day to the next.
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
I got to say, that is the most comprehensive, excellent answer to the question of how, when, and where did you start in bowling that this show has ever had.
Well, thanks, man. I tell you, I now that I'm 61, like I said, Dr. Dean told me, he asked me, he says, so where do these college national championships rank, compared to like your PBA titles? And I said, oh, it's not even close. The college national championships, much more gratifying.
Yeah.
I said, now in the time when you went on tour, because to some degree in my head, when you dream of a kid to go on tour and win on Saturday afternoon with Chris Schenkel, I mean, you can't get in. As a kid, you don't think like that's it. That's all I'm going to do in my life. That's the pinnacle. I can't get any higher. What possibly? And then as you get older, wiser, and smarter, you realize it's just a piece of what you're going to do. But in college bowling, you're affecting so many lives. There's so many people rooting for you. Not only just you have a university, you have a company, Kegel. We now have alumni. You have parents, you have cousins, aunts, uncles. You have coaches of the kids from high school that are rooting for you. And now our kids are. I think we've been through 6 weddings. Unfortunately, now a funeral, a couple of divorces, 6 kids. My former college kids are having kids. And so it's a much richer experience. And the guy that won on tour was a different guy. I look back at that and, man, I thought that that's all I was ever going to do. I mean, that's going to be the highlight of my life. And it was just the start, really. So yeah, it's kind of been a fun, interesting, challenging, and trust me, there have been big bumps along the way and big challenges, like everybody goes through life. But I've had so many great friends that have been there for me and my wife, and still to this day. And Facebook is really cool. I mean, you can look up people you went to high school with, and I ran into some people that were my best friends in my neighborhood. I took my wife Dawn when we were coming back from Team Masters. I said, I'm going to take you to Tour Dell. So we were in Fort Lauderdale. We got off the Lantana exit and we started in my neighborhood, Lantana Lanes, all the places I hung out with, all my schools, my elementary school, my church, the Little League field, everywhere. And I ran across this family that adopted me, kind of. And the family was my best friend. We grew up from the 4th grade all the way to 12th grade, and they were still alive, Fef. 95 years old. And I knocked on the door, and they answered the door.
Huh.
And I said, Mr. Brandt, do you remember me? And he said, of course, you're Del the bowler. Because all I ever did was talk about, I want to be a pro bowler. I want to be a pro bowler. I want to be a pro bowler. And he remembered me, and I was so blessed to tell him. I got to tell him how much they meant to me, and how my parents worked a lot. They took us to ball games, and we played every sport in their front yard. We tore their front yard to smithereens when we were kids. You played kick the can, and baseball and basketball, and I said, the only thing that's different, Mr. Brand, in your front yard, where's the tree that I fell out of? We used to climb the tree, and I fell out of it like probably 10 feet in the air. He says, yeah, it died a long time ago. Yeah. So, like I said, man, I've been severely blessed along the way.
Yeah. Let me take some of those highlights and reset parts of them. You talked about, kind of growing up in the sport and honing your craft, getting better. That we talked to Chuck Gardner in our episode 42.
Oh, yeah.
And he talked about those early days. He said that he met you in a pro shop. You drilled a ball for him. He said that you were so much better than he was as a bowler back then. And after he got better and better, he said that you guys used to bowl every night. And he talked about the action matches and the tournaments and things like that and the road trips. What does his friendship mean to you?
Well, we don't get to see each other much. And we check in on each other, I'd say once a month or so. But what's really kind of neat is that, we've had such paralleled careers in the industry, and we worked together at AMF, and and then I went to track, and he was the first guy I hired. And then I used to work for him in the bowling alley. I reported to him. So we wore all kinds of hats together. And, and ironically, Kegel's biggest competitor is Brunswick.
Yeah.
But I'm so proud of him. I can't tell you, knowing what I know and all the stories are true. It's just been really cool to see, someone that you care so much about have this kind of parallel journey through the industry that we love. And what's funny is when I hear people talk about Chuck that don't really know him like I do, I crack up and laugh, because my college kids, when I met him, we were the same age as they are. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah. So, with his foundation and he and Debbie, Bowl for Life and all the things he's done he's worked for Brunswick, Columbia, AMF, he's owned his own bowling center, and he's, people don't know this, but he's a bit of a race fanatic. He had a race team when we were in, Franklin, Virginia. We used to tease him when he would wreck the car, so I used to go and, on Saturday nights and occasionally go watch him race, and, so yeah, it's again, I told you, I've been very, very blessed to be able to see that, from, think about Palm Beach County. You got Dennis Shears, Chris Chartrand, Chuck Gardner, me coming from West Palm Beach, four of the guys that have had wonderful careers in the industry. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So, you talked about when you decided to join the PBA tour, about your early days, about how you kind of rose to fame, we'll say. You talked to, the LA Times in January of '86, and you told them that you were thinking of quitting the year before. You said you didn't like bowling in the Rabbit Squad. But you said '85 was a bad year for you for a number of reasons. You weren't in shape. You started working out more and partying less, and you got in better shape. Do you attribute that to the success that followed?
Well, first of all, for the record, I never said I partied. If you talk to Chuck was the partier. I drank milk and took vitamins. And me and alcohol have never gotten along. So I don't know where you read that, but whoever quoted me on that was, if Chuck's watching this, he's laughing because I'm the least party guy that you've ever met in your whole life. I mean,
I promise to get you a link after this is done.
I mean, there's no way. So I had a lot of there were some personal challenges in '85. And not to mention, I finished 51st on the point list. Top 50 get exempt. Mm-hmm. So I just missed, and it went down to the last tournament. So maybe when, maybe I was referring to that because that was heartbreaking. And that's what gave me the courage to go out and talk to Jowdy, John Jowdy, my coach, right after I found out I was finished 51st, and he completely changed my game the next day. And so he didn't ask me to work out, but I just felt like I needed to get stronger for the grind on the road. But partying was never, and still is never in my nature. That's funny. But I think struggle, now that I'm 61, struggle builds character, man. Struggle is what makes you better. And that's what I try to teach the college kids today. I mean, we have a lot of competition to make varsity. I go, that's what's going to make you stronger. Now you walk on the team and it's easy to make varsity. That's what's going to make you do the things that you wouldn't normally do to get better. So, and fortunately, I did get the courage to talk to John. He did change my game. I got better immediately. I worked straight for 8 hours and had dinner that night and won a sweeper of 200 guys. After he completely tore my game apart the same day I went and bowled this tournament.
Wow.
And so then me and Randy Peterson, of course, the first tournament on the 85 winter tour, we make the finals in one of the lowest scoring tournaments in 20 years. He wins in Northern California, and he lived in a town right between Northern California and Southern California, halfway between. So of course we drive to his place, and he makes a toast at the party in Santa Maria and said, "This is to my roommate. He's going to win next week." And lo and behold, I won. What were the chances? And we got to go to the Firestone together, and now he's the voice of pro bowling.
Yeah, he is.
And boy, does that fit his personality.
Yeah.
He's man, you talk about a guy that was made for that job. That's him.
No doubt.
True story. This is
Wow.
for my roommate. He's going to win next week. I mean, what are the odds? 1,000,000 to 1?
Wow.
Come on.
And the way that happened, and I'm going to throw a link into the comments here from that tournament, the 86 Los Angeles Open. The way that happened, it takes you 289 in the last game to leapfrog Wayne Webb, make the show, and you get on the show, and it's you with Steve Wunderlich, Marshall Holman, Mark Baker, Mark Williams. And you start knocking off these guys, these
Who are
legends.
those guys? I never heard of them.
One by one. I got to say, I noticed, watching this again, in the second match with Holman, obviously you're pretty even, and then he flags a 10-pin late, and you start hitting strikes, and I can see you pumping your fist and running them out. I mean, you must have felt like you had it right then.
Well, Dr. Dean, a couple years ago, put this up on the big screen when he came in to work with the team, and he didn't tell me he was going to do this. And what I tell everybody is TV was easy because, number one, to me it's like a free ball in pinball. It's extra play, number one. Number two, how much fun is TV? And number three, I had rehearsed that tournament in my head as a kid so many times, millions of times. I used to rehearse it when I practiced. Del Warren needs a big game to win his first title on the PBA Tour. It was already so familiar to me. I already knew what to do. And all I said was a little prayer the night before, and I said, "God, just let me perform at the level that I know I'm capable of." I didn't ask him to win. I said, just let me perform. Because I'm smart enough back then to know I can't control my opponent's score.
Right.
So, and all I did was old school. What Bo Burton taught us on Saturday. Don't look up, look at your mark. And I saw the ball roll through my mark every shot. That's how, whatever you want to call it, in the zone. I kept my thinking really simple, and it felt familiar to me because I had rehearsed it so many times as a kid.
Yeah.
So if you look at my TV record, my TV average is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I lost the second match to Steve Cook, I think I shot 220 or 230.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he is Steve Cook, So, I know that if I knew what I knew today about the physical game, I would have won a lot more.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have gotten hurt. My injuries were due to bad mechanics. But I'm very good hand-eye coordination. I'm always good at anything hand-eye coordination. I'm always very good. And, there were guys that worked as hard as me, but nobody worked harder, And is one of my regrets, that I think I probably should have taken a little bit of time off here and there. And I should have enjoyed the game more. We were in the absolute peak of bowling.
Yeah.
That's my era. The highest amount of ABC, WIBC, USB, AJBC membership, 11 million league bowlers. And we had no idea how good we had it. And I wish I would have enjoyed it more, because we did have a lot of fun, but bowling to me was live or die. So on one hand, it really pushed me to do it, go above and beyond to be a champion. On the other hand, I wish I would have taken some time off and really enjoyed the whole thing and not put so much emphasis on how well I did. But at 61, I'm a bit wiser than the kid that actually went on tour. So
is it now, since you've had the experience of winning on your own and winning a doubles championship with Joe Firpo, tell me about the difference and what that feels like.
It's not even close. That tournament with Joe was awesome. Helping him get to the Firestone, us as kids, knowing that everybody in West Palm Beach and all the bowling centers were rooting for us, having our good friend J.O. King there, my girlfriend at the time was there, and being able to share that with a guy that you grew up in junior bowling with, and winning that tournament, were some of the legendary doubles teams, Roth and Holman, that bowled. Man, I mean, it just didn't get any better than that. That's my favorite title, for sure, is winning with Joe. And I've watched that show more than I've watched LA. And hearing him get the interview, he goes, "This is the thing that all the kids dream about, winning a title and going Firestone." He goes, "I just can't believe I can't, that I'm doing it." And he goes, like Joe does. And we were wearing these goofy maroon outfits with big collars on, and we went and picked out our maroon pants. I mean, how bad was our outfits on that show? I mean, come on.
I'm just concentrating on the bowling, man. Not the outfits.
I'm just concentrating on bowling. Lord.
So, you talked about how your time ended, you had the injury problems, you went into the business. You had posted a while back that letter from AMF to you in March of 93. And the part that I wanted to focus on was about Mo. It said, "Mo Pinnell has indicated his high level of confidence in your abilities. Mo has promised me that he would help you in any way possible to succeed in this opportunity." And I'm sure it meant tons to you to read that then. But now, I mean, looking back, how important was that to have the support of a guy like Mo Pinnell at that time?
Well, he changed my life. I was fortunate that a few months before he passed away, I had him over to the house for dinner. And I could see in his face, he didn't tell me, but Dawn and I knew that he wasn't well.
Yeah.
And I got to cook for him. I bought 8 bottles of his favorite wine 20 years ago. I only shared this bottle with him, a bottle of 72 Chateau Margaux. People don't know, but Mo's father was the head chef at the Waldorf Astoria. He had a very fine eye for good food and wine. And he just said some things that night that were uncharacteristic for him. So he knew that he was sick. And I got to say everything I needed to say to him. And I just told him, I said, "You see this house? You see, we have a shot at a really nice retirement." I go, "If I don't meet you, we don't." And of course, he played it down and said, "You did it." He goes, "I just gave you the opportunity. You kicked the door in." But more importantly, he taught me how to manage life. He taught me how he called me the most naive person he had ever met when I was a kid. I mean, I grew up literally World War II parents. I'm a Christian. I went to Sunday school. I thought, it was like the 70s and the 60s, and he goes, "You're so naive, Del. You'll learn." And he taught me how to use my brain. He taught me that I was smart. I didn't think I was. He said, "You're very smart." He goes, "Del, you just don't have any training." He said, "That's all college is. College is training. You just don't have any training. It's not that you're not smart." And so he taught me how to focus. The tour taught me how to focus too. And so from there, I just was never afraid to work. I got my work ethic from my parents. I'm honest as the day is long. And, we got in as my knowledge grew, Mo and I would get into some really spirited fights. And I got to spend 2.5 years on the road with him. When I became president of Track was building Mo-Rich product. So in my first business plan with him was to grow Track and Mo-Rich simultaneously, to come up with a plan to do that. And the best thing is I literally spent 240 days a year on the road with him. And man, the stories are all true. And man, did I get a life lesson doing that. So everybody needs confidence in what they do. Mo gave me confidence to do things that I would have never had the confidence to do in my life. And without that confidence, you're going to be a little afraid to take chances and make mistakes. Stand up in front of people. First time I'm doing a ball seminar, there's 150 pro shops in Minnesota. And the night before I said, "Okay, come on, let's rehearse." He goes, "Rehearse? We're not rehearsing." I go, "What part am I doing?" He goes, "I don't know. I'll just throw you the pen when it's your turn." So literally, you talk about kicking me in the pool. That's all he did. And I went, "What?" He goes, "Del, you know more than you think you do. You'll be fine. I promise." Oh. So, hour and 15 minutes into the seminar, he stops and throws me the pen. He goes, "You're on." I stand up in front of 150 pro shops and we get done. And we were staying at a pretty nice hotel. And again, Mo knows the finer things. He says, "Now, and listen, Chuck will tell you I'm the cheapest person he's ever met. I would say that I'm really smart with money and I'm frugal."
Yeah.
Okay. He's going to tell you that I still have every nickel I ever made. And so Mo, we go up to the bar and he goes, and I said, "I don't drink." And he says, "You're going to experience something because somebody like you that is cheap as you will never do. But there's some things in life you have to experience, Del." He bought me a shot of Louis XIV at that time was $75 a shot.
Oh.
And so he said, "Now sip it." And I go, "I don't like alcohol." He goes, "You're going to like this." And man, was it good. He bought me a second shot. So he spent $300 and he says, "I'm doing this because number one, you have to experience things. There's certain things you have to experience in life. Number two, I am so proud of you." And that was his way of saying, "Great job. Congratulations."
Yeah.
So, everyone needs teachers, mentors. Everybody needs somebody to kick themselves in the kick yourself in the butt. Everybody needs to be honest with you when you screw up and hold you accountable. And everybody needs people that gives them confidence. And I've been blessed to have all of that. And Mo is a lot of that. He played many roles, and to the point where I used to challenge him, and there were many things I didn't agree with, Mm-hmm. And he goes, you still have the right to be wrong. It was one of his Moisms. You have the right to be wrong. So, so that letter was meant a lot to me. You really have done your homework, man.
I try.
I'm really, I'm really impressed.
I'm not coming into this like you came into the Pro Shop seminar, let me tell you.
Oh.
um, was John Davis another one who gave you confidence?
John gave me confidence because he said all he had to do is say, "Del, I trust you." And we had some great conversations. I used to take Sunday, and I'd go to church, come back, make a cup of coffee, grab my phone, put John in my ear, and walk around the block. One day, because the Vietnam War really affected him, he said to me one day, he goes, "So how was Disneyland this morning?" And I said, "What do you mean? Disneyland? I'm talking about, I didn't go to Disney. I went to church." He goes, yeah, Disneyland. How was that?" So we talked about everything. We talked about God and spiritualism, and and when you start talking, you would go around the world, and and then we'd finally get back to bowling. And he was so smart and I love people that just see the world differently. Like, I was really good friends with Bill Taylor. You talk about arguments, So I'll never forget my review with John Davis. This was my review, 1-year anniversary. "Del, thank you for coming to work at Kegel." That was it.
That's it. Wow.
He thanked me for coming to work at Kegel. John Davis. I'm like, "Thank you for hiring me to work in bowling heaven. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
So, yeah, just some great conversations that, man, I miss him so much, because he just had like Mo, he had a different way of looking at the world. Mo told me about, or John used to talk about Mo. He goes, "He's the freest man I've ever met." Meaning, he didn't care what you thought about him. He was always himself. And I think John was pretty free himself.
Yeah. Tell me about, starting to coach the men's team. I mean, I always kind of bring this back, at least personally for me. I have a history in local TV. I was a reporter and an anchor for years, and then I got into management. And I always thought that, when you get into management, their victories have to be your victories. Their success has to be your success. And it starts to feel even better than your own meager accomplishments sticking microphones in people's faces. Is that kind of how it worked out for you?
Well, Dawn and I, we couldn't have kids. And the kids now have become as close to parents as I thought we would ever be. I've cried more in college bowling than I've ever cried in my life. Successes and failures, and getting crushed by coming so close to winning a national championship and knowing you should have won and you didn't, to winning a national championship going in when you thought, man, there's maybe a 1 in 10 chance of winning, and you win. Seeing some of the things that I've seen, and knowing how hard it is to do and what it took to get there. Only the coach and the players know what it took to get to that moment and execute in that moment. So the team becomes bigger than you. And I have a responsibility, as I told the team in a meeting 2 days ago. I have a responsibility of figuring out a way how I'm going to get better every year. And I thoroughly believe, because Kegel and Weber got into college bowling 14 years ago, that there's better coaches, more knowledge compared to what it was 14 years ago. Because ironically, because I'm the vice president of the training center, my job is to learn new things and give it to the world. So now I'm giving my information to my rivals.
Yeah.
Which, there's a part of me that's like, would Ohio State ever invite Michigan into its locker room and show them its playbook? Like, what is wrong with this picture? But I could hear John Davis over my shoulder. And my main responsibility is, he goes, "You got 2 jobs, Del. Do what's right by Kegel. Do what's right by bowling. Help bowling grow. Learn, and give your knowledge to the world." And that's what we do. Many of my kids that I coach don't come to Weber. We don't have their, maybe they don't want to go to school in Florida. A lot of times we don't have their major. And so what they learn goes on, and they pass that on to teams. And we now have a coaching mentorship program. We now have a master's program in coaching. Not only that, I'm such a better coach than I was 16 years ago. I have a much broader skill set. I've had to study team dynamics, and I've had to study this generation. I've really learned to be way more patient than I was 14 years ago. And what's really cool is if you talk to the kids along the way, each era, Gary Faulkner, as a matter of fact, 2 years after he had graduated, he come to visit me at the Hoosier. I had a really young team that year. He's watching for him an hour, and I'm going back and I'm talking to him here and there. And he says, Coach, how come you're not doing this and this and this with them right now? I said, and I used to get on his teams really hard because they were really good and they were older. I go, if I got on them like I did with you guys, they would pee their pants right now. I said, not only that, because a lot of people don't know Gary's father is a pastor.
Oh.
So I said, Gary, I pray a lot about me. And I said, I'm getting better, Gary. I'm getting more patient. I'm observing more than I'm speaking. So, this environment has allowed me to grow as a person, meaning Kegel, and the experience in college bowling has allowed me to be a better coach, a better person, a better husband. Certainly trying to understand this generation and not sounding like an old person, back in my day, this is the way we did and this is the way you should do it, Now there's some truth to that, but still, it's a different world we live in today. It's a different skill set. It's a whole different deal. Sure. So, without that opportunity to coach college bowling at the training center, I wouldn't have that skill set. I wouldn't have had those life experiences. So thank you, John, for hiring me.
Yeah. And I did talk with one of the folks who were there early on, Austin Yankee. He came in for episode 9. And when I talked to him, I asked him, because he brought you up, and I asked him, okay, Dell's not here right now, but if you could kind of tell me what you think he'd say about you, what would it be? And the natural response is, well, you'll have to ask Dell. But I want you to hear what he said, because I thought it was interesting. Here, I'm going to play it right now.
I'd say that he'd be pretty impressed and happy with the knowledge that I've been able to apply to my game that he's, taught us over the years. Actually, I just spoke to him last night because I had issues over at the Chippewa, the match games, and he's always very responsive. He's a great coach.
He's always very responsive. I just talked to him last night. Is that common, or is that just something you did because he needed the help?
Well, I'm kind of geared. I like helping people. I got that from my mother. And I'll answer the question in this way. Last year we did an activity called What's Your Why? Well, it's pretty popular in business today, but what's your why? So I did a kind of a presentation on it, gave them an assignment. We came back a week later. Everybody went around the room, told us what their why was. We get ready to go, and I go, doesn't anybody interested on what my why is?
There's my follow-up question right there. You stole it from me.
And of course, a couple of hands. Well, you want to win a national championship? Because I always say I love winning. Mm-hmm. I'm as competitive as they get, and I hate losing, just like Randy. I go, no, that's not my why. I said, here's my why. I wanted to be so good for so long, and I grew up in an era where we didn't know anything, and a lot of what was taught was bad. In my gut, I knew it. And I knew I could have been a lot better. I think I could have got to the Hall of Fame based on some of the guys that got to the Hall of Fame. And when I was good, I was better than some of them that got to the Hall of Fame early on. And just some basic ideas, a straight swing that doesn't get inside your hip, and the swing that goes through your right leg, and good geometry would have put the ball at the bottom of the swing in a different place. And I most people struggle in bowling because they have the wrong concept. I'm a concept teacher. And I said, my why is you guys don't have to struggle and cry and be up all night and go through the pain that I went through because I didn't know the answers and I was always looking for it. I have the answers. We have the answers, and you don't have to struggle. I don't want to see someone that's passionate about bowling ever struggle, and that we give you the platform to be as good as you want to be. That's my why.
Oh.
I remember all the kids from the southern region that first went on tour didn't have a lot of money. We roomed with Guppy Troop in his motorhome. $50 a week, you got a bed. It was cheap. Parked outside. You need a ride. And he was kind of the guys that came out of the southern region. He kind of took care of everybody, right? I love Guppy. And I remember missing cash 2 weeks in a row and driving from Portland to Seattle. And I was crying at 2:00 in the morning because this guy was telling me 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 that. And I'd have 10 people, Joe Hutchinson, Charlie Tapp, Tommy Baker, who took really good care of me, Guppy Troop, the guys from the southern region. They're always telling me something different. Well, you should do this with your swing or your game or this or that. And it all made sense. And I didn't know which direction to turn to. I don't want those kids to go through the pain. The kids that really have a passion to be good. I mean, that's why I've studied the games as long, as hard as I have. And that's really encompasses me to a T. And that's why he responded the way he did.
Yeah. We talk about, successes, failures. You were talking about how there were a lot of bumps along the way. I have to bring up 2017 because the team won the ITC, but then USBC determines that a player was ineligible and the team has to vacate the championship. They suspend you for a short time and then bring you back a few months later. You had a statement that really owned it, I thought. And I guess I don't want to talk about that so much, but maybe the after. How did you get through that period when you were suspended, and what has changed now because of that?
Well, how did I get through? Cried, prayed, talked to Dr. Dean a lot, spent a lot of time with my wife, stayed off the internet. We call that time Dell's vacation. I literally wasn't allowed around the kids, so I wasn't allowed in practice. So literally I would pass the kids in the hall and I'd put my arm up, they put their arm up, and we giggle as the way we went by. But I literally abided by the mandate that Gary Brown set down. I don't know how I got through it. It's still incredibly painful to this day when I think about it, because it was just it was a monumental mistake, but it could have been easily avoided had I done my job and thoroughly investigated Gio, who is, Andro was my first son, Gio's my second son. You won't find a better kid than Gio, who works for Storm now. And didn't hold him accountable at all. It was all on me because I didn't go through the layers that I should have gone through. So how did I get through it? I had a lot of great friends. I have a very understanding Chris Chartrand who held me accountable, but knew what happened because I've known Chris for so long, and he knew my heart. My wife knows my heart. My people that I work with know who I am. So I was very fortunate that my reputation of always trying to do the right thing, as my mother said, they knew what had happened. Dealing with it was something different. And of course, she had a lot of stalkers on the internet. And then my wife having to put up with the things that people were saying, whispering in postseason in college. I was really happy that she's a pretty tough cookie from New York. She's Italian and not afraid to scrap. So she had to deal with that, but she's a really strong woman. So that's kind of the bullet points around that question, but I don't really know. Because when I got the phone call and I realized what had happened, even before I went in the investigation, what was at stake, I don't know. There was a part of me that just said, let's find the tallest building and jump off of it. This is too painful. I mean, now that I think about it, how understanding the school was. I mean, where else does this happen where a coach doesn't get fired in any other sport? By the school. They never even considered it. So the AD at the time knew who I was, knew what had happened, did their investigation, and found out that there was some culpability on their end as well. It was really kind of the perfect storm, the way things slipped through the crack. But at the end of the day, I'm the guy that's running the program. So I don't think I'll ever get over that. I still think about it from time to time. But the team I had that took that, the parents were so kind. Fef, I just can't even tell you. I just talked to Aaron. I just sent Aaron Uradovich a text message today. Say, hey, man, he's in his last year of law school. And enjoy your last year in college. Really, embrace yourself. And he's been nothing more than kind. We've all had a lot of tears over this. I do still have the TV show on my DVR, which I will covet the rest of my life because they pulled it down off of YouTube. And so I still have probably the only copy in the world. And so I would say, aside from my parents dying, probably the most painful thing I've ever been through. So, you go from, you're on top of the world. You got a great job. You're healthy. You got a great relationship with your wife. And you're seeing your kids grow up. And in one moment, you go to the bottom. So I think God was teaching me lessons. I think he was knocking me down a couple of rungs and telling me that, this can all go away. You're a blessed man and I love you. But he brought me back down to earth. So, and I grew a lot out of it. So I guess, I'm certainly a better person because of it.
And then 2019 comes around. You win the national championship. Tom Hankey wins the singles championship. That would be sweet under any circumstance. Now it must be even sweeter, having to climb that hill again.
Well, listen, I'm a really competitive guy. So there were a lot of coaches that said some things on the internet that were just not true. And they were very ugly. So I got to be honest with you, I'm a competitor. I'm a pro bowler and I played every sport. I mean, there was a part of me that just that felt pretty good about that. Not a big part, but hey, listen, I'm a competitor. Mm-hmm. But what I was really happy about is that team wanted to win for the 2017 team. That was kind of their battle cry. And Aaron Uradovich was in the stands. He came to see that. And he was bawling his eyes out every bit as much as I was, and my wife and all the kids on the team. And so that team really not only wanted to win for each other, but they wanted to win for that team. How cool was that? Yeah. And they talked about that. And I didn't bring it up. They talked about that. And so that was a special moment. There were many layers to that. Having Tom win. I've been coaching Tom since he was 14. His parents, I'm really close to his parents. I prayed again, you talk about the contrast in those 3 episodes. You win the national championship, oh, by the way, you lost and you're disqualified. And then, I mean, come on, it's just nuts. So I don't know if I handled it right or wrong. I'm just me. But I get a lot of that from my mother, a lot of it.
Yeah. What, how do you approach the rest of this season? I mean, you've had, the one tournament, runner-up finish. You said it yourself. You were proud about how they executed, how they did. Tell me about what it's like to head up one of the premier programs in college bowling with, national championships behind you, and, trying to get these guys who you've admitted are a little on the younger side to really uphold that tradition of excellence from Weber.
Well, one of the things I'm most proud of, as you can see when I answer questions, I'm pretty thorough, is how our culture is developed, and see how the upperclassmen embrace the freshman and sophomore. Now, I didn't really teach them that. The culture is just, every year we add a layer to the culture, and every year we do wonderful at reflection and what we do well, what we didn't do well. We could do it all over again, what we do different. And we build a brick every year. When I look back at the success of the program, I am just shocked. It's really hard to win a national championship. Really hard. And you got to get breaks along the way. As Dr. Dean says, it's got to be your time. So when you have 13-year-old kids now come up to you in the recruiting phase, and I'm a pretty tall guy, and they tug on your shirt and they say, Mr. Warren, my dream is to come to play for you at Weber. What? Your dream? I've got socks older than you, So it's an honor. I just can't believe it. When I went into college bowling, I didn't think it was any big deal. It was just something we were going to do part-time. It was like, okay, yeah, we go do this thing. We train a couple of kids. How hard could it be? You practice for a couple hours. We pick out the top 8 guys. Yeah, we'll get their swing in line. We'll put the right balls in their hand and match them up. No clue, Pfeff. Not even, so naive you can't even believe it. And what's great is it's changed Randy's life, Rick's life. The girls have, Randy's, he barks and bites and everything. Those girls have him so wrapped under their finger. It's changed his life so much. So number one, there's a part of me that can't believe it. Number two, I have to try to get better. We got to figure out every year, how do we get better? Because now all the teams are better. They're more knowledgeable. Now you got Katie Thornton out there kicking our butt, So, and you've got new programs emerging that are really good. So part of me knows that John's smiling somewhere, because we have a part of that growth. And as I said, the day we don't become competitive is the day I step down. I'm that competitive a person, and I want to win. So, like, as I'm telling Tom Hankey right now, the better you get, the harder it is to get better. Mm-hmm. So you got to find that extra gear. You got to find another. Where do we get better? Where are the gaps? Now, part of that is the team changes every year, right? But our training methods have to change. We've got to get kids better faster, because recruiting is getting harder. And that's our core competency. Our core competency is bowler development. The best comment I get every year is like when Mike Kabacki comes up to me, we're good friends, and he's watching our teams, or maybe we're competing against each other. And he goes, "Where'd you get that kid from?" I go, "He came out of our developmental team. His best finish at junior gold was 700th. He goes, "He's awesome." That's the best compliment you can get as a coach, is we develop our players. So, Fev, I just can't believe it. I look at this big trophy case, and I think about all the struggles and all the tears, all the joys, and the gamut of emotions and the trials. I mean, I've lost so much sleep over Weber, you just can't even believe it. And me and the coaches, we don't make a nickel. I've never gotten a raise. I've gotten an iPad. Chartran bought me an iPad after the 2012 national championship. And he bought me a round of golf. He goes, hey, you and Randy and Ruben, I'm going to buy you a fishing trip. I go, those two guys don't fish. So buy us a round at Stream Song. It's $200. We love to play golf. Let us have lunch. And you get a 4-caddy, I said, do that. That's all I've ever gotten, and I love it. I just absolutely am thoroughly, I hate to lose. And when we lost to McKendree in the years run together, but we lost to McKendree and they went on to win the national championship. I bawled for 10 minutes in Ramon's arms. I couldn't stop crying. By the time he was done, his shirt was soaked. He was crying too.
Yeah.
I never did that on tour. When I lost in Oklahoma by a stick, I never did that. So, there's so many emotional things, and it's really hard to win, man. So anyway, it's the best thing I've ever been involved in, college bowling. And to see Katie do as well as she's doing, now you've got the head coach at Tulane. Honey, help me out. Head coach at Tulane. You got Haley, who was the anchor bowler. Oh, by the way, she won the national championship for us, most valuable player the first year Randy wins the national championship on a broken leg, by the way.
Oh, my gosh.
She had a broken leg and she didn't know it. Broken ankle. Yeah.
Wow.
True story. Right out of Hallmark. A week before we go to nationals, she's doing her last workout, falls on the stairs, breaks her ankle, doesn't know it, goes and has an x-ray. They say it's severely sprained. Tapes it up, doesn't bowl for a week, comes in, throws about 7 or 8 shots, says, I can get through the pain, wraps her ankle because they misdiagnosed it, goes on to strike every ball for 2 days, wins the MVP, we win the national championship. She comes home, goes back to the doctor and says, we misdiagnosed it. It's broken in 3 places.
Oh.
True story.
That's a movie.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So now I've got kids that are college coaches. You got Nate Garcia and Elise now in Atlanta. I've got 5 kids that are high school coaches. I got Jalen Scott Jones, who's been an assistant coach, who probably will be a head coach, that's part of our program. Crazy, bro. Crazy.
I do want to mention also, the training center. You called it bowling heaven. Now I have to work tomorrow, so this is all hypothetical. But let's say I get in my car and drive down. I'm a regular guy, and I get down to Lake Wales and I pull into the parking lot, and I've got my 3-ball roller, and I knock on your microphone, and I say, hey, let me in. I'm ready to train. Is that how this works, or is there a method? Is there a way to get in? Is there a way to get coaching? How does the training center work for regular people like me?
Well, we've had walk-ins. We don't encourage it. I have a calendar on my phone. You call. You can actually book a lesson online, pick a coach, or you can call the training center. Mm-hmm. And then David Lance, who's my training center coordinator, who bowled for me for 4 years, by the way, the Florida kid, probably has the most important role in the training center. He's in charge of the day-to-day business. He will take all your information, take some very specific notes in the calendar so the coach can see it. You'll book a half a day or a full day. You'll come in. We'll meet. I'll look at your profile. I'll ask you a few questions. You'll go down and warm up, and we'll do a 15-shot specto session when you're warmed up. We'll evaluate the session, and meanwhile, while you're doing that, I'm looking at your mechanics, formulating what we're going to do. I take some video of you, and by the time I see you throw 3 or 4 shots, I already know what we're doing between that and reading your profile. And then we go through the day, whether it's 3 hours or 6 hours, and people come in for a multitude of reasons, but the bottom line is you're trying to improve your score. And usually what they think they're doing that's preventing them from working is always the same thing. they have the wrong concept. So, if 2 + 2 is 5 in your head, you're never going to come to the right answer.
Right.
And just like in golf, because I'm a golf fanatic, there's a lot of misinformation on the internet that people on a house shot, believe it or not, 90% of our customers are regular league bowlers that just want to get better. They're like me in golf. I spend an enormous amount of money on golf lessons every year and trying to get my handicap down. And we try to keep it really simple. As I've grown as a coach, I actually teach in a much simpler way. And I get a lot better results. And then from there, we write you a training plan. Then you have my phone, Randy's phone, Rick's phone, Ruben. You can check with us after, like people fly over from all over the world or just from Florida. And there's no charge for follow-up or as many follow. You want to send me videos, you can send me videos till the cows come home. But we're going to give you a very specific training program so that when you go home, you know what to do. Some of the training is at home. Some of the training's at the lanes. A lot of people we get, we don't even call it training. They practice for maybe an hour a month. We're going to show you how to get the best out of that hour and to specifically get to the biggest liability in your game that's affecting your whole system. Now, I can tell you 20 years ago, I couldn't do that. And I've been a gold coach for a long time. Yeah. So, and the results that we get are phenomenal. Even it surprises me sometimes. So that's a little bit about the experience. And you have us even after you leave the training center. You have access to us all the time. And listen, as athletes, people that love bowling and throwing a bowling ball as an athletic event or hitting a golf ball or whatever, you need feedback. Yeah. One of my coaches is Dr. Dean. I need feedback in my life to get better. I need somebody to coach me and say, hey, we started this year. He said, I can get your IQ up 10 points. Because I'm like, listen, I want to get smarter. He goes, before you die, I can get your IQ up 10 points. I'm like, I'm in. Yeah. He said, are you sure? I go, I'm in. I want to do that. So he's always pushing me and I'm pushing him. And this is no different. Everybody needs feedback. Everybody needs a coach. Yeah.
Boy, I hope Mrs. Pfeff was listening to that last part. Holidays are coming up pretty soon. They'll be here before you know it. I got to get to my off the sheet part, and that's where we ask you to challenge somebody else to appear on the show. Again, talent level, skill level, kind of out the window. We look for people who have an interesting, unique bowling story to tell and are passionate about the game. So, Della Warren, who would you like to challenge to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Pfeff?
Oh, this is easy. Randy Stoughton.
Okay. And tell me why.
Similar background to me. Grew up, he's older than I am, and I always remind him of that, by the way. But similar background to me. Grew up on the tour, but he's, he ran the PBA truck. Huh? He redesigned the whole, after Litchie retired, worked for Ebonite for 13 years, was monumental in some of the products that they came out with. And he's been at the training center 2 years longer than me. And of course, his legendary women's teams at Weber, is the head coach for the Aruba national team to this day. And, one of the most worldly bowling people I know, one of my best friends, but started like we all did. I mean, dreaming of going on tour from a great bowling community in Indianapolis. Still, we go there. He knows everybody. And really, you talk about a unique story, longer than mine.
Wow. Well, hey, I would be honored, Randy, if you're watching, maybe if you want to get the word to him, let me know. I'm on Facebook, of course. You can DM me there or email me at bowlingwiththepfeff@yahoo.com. Our next live stream is Wednesday, October 13th, a week from tonight, 6 p.m. Central. And we have a guest that a lot of people out there might know. His name is Bill O'Neill. Have you ever crossed paths with Bill O'Neill?
Oh, sure. I remember him back when he bowled in college.
Yeah.
And the Mega Buck days and all of that. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Yeah. Absolutely respectful and nice. And I mean, what a game he's got, what a career he's had. But that comes to mind. But the other thing that comes to mind is just how gracious he is and easygoing as it gets.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to talking to him. You can see that live a week from tonight, 6 p.m. Central, or on replay anytime. Del, it has been an absolute pleasure. Loved hearing your story, about competing, about being in the industry, coaching, and certainly the training center. Best of luck to you and your team this season and in the business as well.
I'll tell you what, man, I've really enjoyed this. No one has ever asked me the type of questions you have. Man, are you thorough? And I love this format. When I talked to Chuck, he mentioned that he said that I was his guy. But even my wife listened to the whole interview with Chuck, and she's known Chuck almost as long as I have. She loved it.
I love the show.
And she's been around bowling her whole life. She was my customer service manager at track and ran customer service at AMF as well, and worked for Kegel for 5 years. So she was so complimentary about your show and just raved about it. So congratulations on having something new and exciting that people can tune into. That's not the same old. And you can tell, man, that you love what you do and you're really thorough. I have hats off to you.
Thank you so much. I mean, coming from the two of you, that means a lot. And it's a labor of love. I say it over and over, but it's true. I mean, this is just something that I like to do. I hope, hope people enjoy it. And as long as people are willing to, to be guests and watch, I'll keep doing it.
Fabulous. Thanks again.
Thank you. Have a great night. Be just and fear not. We'll see you all next week.